What's up, gang? It's Delta here from Delta's Gaming, and this is part 2 of how to stamina Nightblade. And in this section, I'm going to go through gear. A lot of my videos have really fancy gear that you just want to put on or don't have access to, and I want to layer gear, explain how it actually works, so you can go and build your character, whether you have 0 champion points or 1,000. Stay tuned if you want to know how gear works on a stamina Nightblade. So what does armor actually do for you? It's a thing that a lot of people don't understand. Number 1, it gives you reduced cost and more regeneration for wearing medium armor, which is based on weapon damage, which is our primary source of doing damage with weapons and skills. It also gives you more max stamina and max weapon power. Those two things together determine how hard you hit primarily. It also gives you critical rating. The more medium armor pieces you wear, the more critical you get. If you don't know what critical rating is, it makes you hit harder at 1.5 base rate. More crit, there's no soft caps on it, so stack it to your heart's content. It also gives you more weapon damage for having a 5-piece bonus, 12% in fact. So wearing at least 5 pieces of medium armor is very important for our stamina builds. And how damage is determined. You have critical rating, which is 1.5. You can pump that up. You have armor penetration. So when you do damage to a target, it factors in your weapon damage, your max stat, and how much resistance that person has, and then how much armor penetration you have. So medium armor, to summarize, is your main source of resource regeneration and damage. Alright, we're on the kitty cat here, and I want to explain set bonuses. Set bonuses are pieces of gear you can get, but wearing one or more pieces gives you a certain benefit. So for me, I'm wearing a 5-piece Night Mothers, which I will explain in my build, why it's valuable, and so on. But just for the sake of this video, wearing 2 pieces of this set gives you weapon critical, 3, so on and so forth, and 5, usually a really big, powerful, unique bonus. The reason this is important is because you need to focus in on your champion points, what you have, and how you outline your set bonuses. For me, I have a ridiculous amount of champion points. Now, why does that matter? If you have 600 champion points or more, essentially at this point, you can put 200 points into Warlord, reducing the stamina cost of abilities by 16% and 100 into Mooncalf. 25% stamina generation. What this allows me to do is not use any set bonuses for resource regeneration, stamina recovery, or reduced cost. So you can put stamina recovery on your gear with set bonuses. You can also use drinks over food to get more stamina recovery. You need stamina recovery and reduced cost when you're starting off, because otherwise you're only going to be able to use a couple abilities, you're going to run out of gas and die. You can also get reduced stamina cost by enchanting your jewelry. Notice that I have weapon damage over that. Reason being, I have ridiculous amount of champion points. So let's just say, for instance, we take this build and we look at my ambush attack. Right now it costs 2514, so 2500 stamina roughly. And then we look at my resource regeneration with just food on, and it's at 982. Now that's not a lot, but I'll explain why I keep it very low. Okay, so let's do that. Now we remove all these champion points that I have earned. Now I'm not Superman. Confirmed, there's 3,000. Okay, now let's look at it. That almost dropped me 200 stamina recovery. And now, the cost of ambush went up to 2,900. So you can see that without these champion points, you really need to hone in on resource regeneration starting off early. The more and more you play, the more and more champion points you get, the more and more you can focus on damage over this. Okay, let me show you a chart to illustrate this. Okay, we look at this very basic and terrible drawing of a chart. Essentially what I want you to get from this idea is the more champion points you have, the more aggressive you can be with your set bonuses. The less champion points you have, the less aggressive you can be. Remember, there's champion points as diminishing returns, so at about 400 to 600, you could hit that mark where you're having a massive amount of resource generation and reduced cost. At that point, you switch from more stamina recovery and reduced cost to more weapon damage and max stamina. Okay, so here we have a basic gear chart of some starter sets that I recommend people get. Ashen Grip. It's a strong 3-piece to 4-piece set that gives you max health and weapon damage. Also, Hunting's Rage gives you crit and max stamina and a massive amount of weapon damage starting out. So these are craftable sets that are pretty easy to get a hold of. You can use them from level 1 all the way to VR16. I recommend recrafting every about 10 levels or so, or every 5 veteran levels. Don't blow all of your big, huge, fancy legendary mats when you're VR2. Wait until endgame, trust me. And it's worth putting them on. You'll notice that I go all medium, and the traits are infused on larger slots, head, chest, and legs, and then divines on everything else. Divines increases your Mundus Stone effect. Infuse gives you more stats. This is pretty optimal. Pretty basic, pretty good. And then for your weapons, I go with daggers, since there's no soft caps on weapon critical, precise trait, two-hander usually for buffs, and then your jewelry, you're going to want the robust trait, meaning more stamina. If you can't get all this stuff, it's okay to go suboptimal, but this is going to produce a lot of damage. If you're struggling with resources with this setup, switch something else that has stamina recovery. Also, go drinks over food. It will really help you out. So if the previous version was the Chevy Cavalier, this is the Chevy Camaro. It's a little bit upgraded. You're going to use an Undaunted 2-piece. Now, Undaunted are from the pledges. What I recommend is a Narineth, which comes from Crypt of Hearts. You can also do City of Ash if you have a lot of damage over time effects, or you can do Molag Kina if you're big and bad and do all the latest PvE content. The Undaunted 2-pieces do add a lot, so think about doing some Engine Guardian farms or some PvE to get this. Still, Hunting's Rage is one of the crafted sets, and it's still amazing, even at endgame, and what I use a lot on my builds. Then I go with Night Silence, because the 2-piece gives you max stamina and the agility jewelry pieces. It goes all the way up to VR16. You can get it through doing the new content, farming Imperial City for the shards, unlocking chests, or doing dungeons. This is a much better setup. It's going to produce higher damage, but it requires a little more effort to get a hold of. And now we have the Bugatti of gear right now, which would be a 2-piece Molag Kina. You can get from White Gold Tower, which I do have, and then you can get Essence Thief. That's going to give you a ridiculous amount of damage at endgame. I'm still missing a couple pieces of Essence Thief, so I don't even have this set yet, and I've done the dungeon probably 100 times. So if you're looking for super top end, go with this. But remember, bunch of different things work. Try to balance your resources, max stamina, and weapon damage. Okay, so that's the gear section. You were probably wondering, Deltia, what the heck are you wearing on this guy? So this is my Khajiit Nightblade. Some of the finer points to gearing your character would be to focus on your unique racial passives and build something centered around that. So the interesting thing that Khajiits have is increased weapon damage by weapon critical by 8%. Also increases the damage done while stealth by 10%. So what I did on this guy is, thanks to a friendly tip from Esha, is focused in on the Night Mother set. Critical attacks also reduces target's physical resistance by 2500. So with this guy's buffs up, let's use food. So that's going to give us max stats. We're going to do major and minor brutality, so I'm going to use a potion for this so you guys can see. And bang. And my max stats. So I have almost 80% weapon critical, and I have almost 4,000 weapon damage. 30,000 stamina roughly, and I'm using the Shadow Mundus Stone. So my thing is focusing around doing a lot of crit. And when I have my major and my minor buffs up, I'm at about 82% if I pop my minor buff. Also, I can get major Berserk and minor Berserk, increasing my damage by about 33% if I kill some mobs, making this build utterly insane damage. I'm also using 1-piece Molag Kina for extra weapon damage, and then 3 pieces of Ashen Grip with 3-piece agility set. So if you want to see this little thing in action, remember it's focused on doing damage off of crit. The more times I crit, the powerful the damage becomes. So let's just sneak up on someone. Also, I get a sneak bonus too. So I'm going to debuff this guy's armor. Pop my potion to get my major buffs up. And bang! 51,000 surprise attack. Yes, that's why I focus on this build the way I do. And this guy wants to nuke me. And bigger. It's helpful. Okay, so you can see there, that's how I focus my build around. Now you'll notice that I told you earlier I didn't have a whole lot of stamina recovery and or regen. And the reason I don't is in PvE or PvP I'm almost always running with a Templar. Let me show you the reason Templars are so important. There's 2 reasons you gotta run with a Templar in your group. And one is Blazing Spear and or whatever morph you take. So Blazing Spear, it does damage, it's great, but if you look at it, while active, an ally can pick up a Spear Shard restoring 25% stamina and an additional 1700 stamina over 10 seconds. So it's based on your max pool. This can be picked up every 30 seconds. So if you throw it here, that's a big, huge radius, and it's going to give you a synergy. So on the Xbox and PlayStation 4, it's those 2 buttons together. But what the thing it does is, every 30 seconds you can basically have limitless stamina, pretty much. But you're reliant on a Templar. The second reason you want to bring a Templar is good old repentance. If you look at this, activate, blah, blah, blah. You basically steal enemies' souls to restore health and stamina to nearby allies. So this can crit heal and give you 3,500 per body. So if you're doing AoE DPS, you almost never run out of stamina. The problem is it requires you to almost constantly have a Templar. And if I put Mage Light up, it goes even higher because it's based off your max stats. So let me show you what this looks like. Oh, he got nuked. So right there, bang. I mean, that's almost 4,000 stamina. Plus, you can get 25% back with a Blazing Spear or a Luminous Spear every 30 seconds with the synergies, because synergies do have cooldowns. So, if you run with a Templar in your group and you're not playing solo, focus your build on more damage, less sustain, because you're going to be relying upon this guy, your good old friendly Templar, to give you resources back. Okay, that was a lot of information. I hope this was super helpful. Getting part 3 ready, which is basically how to put it all together, and then I come out with a couple builds on PvP, PvE, and can't wait to finish up Stamina Nightblade and moving on to a different class. Maybe Stam DK. Stam DK, it's level 25, baby.